All right, this is episode 3 of the First Time Home Buyer series that we're running. In this episode, we're going to talk about the contract. What happens that once you've got that contract and everybody's fired up, what do we do next? Okay, what are the processes at that point? What are the details? Really important part of the home buying process is this contract part. With me again is the lovely Hannah Way, top home buyer specialist at the Home Marketing Group. She's really good at this part, so I wanted to make sure that she was with us on this to discuss the contract process. So we're under contract, Hannah. Right after that, what's the first thing a buyer should do?
Okay, it's go time at this point. This is where, okay, we've looked around. Now this is where they see, oh, I needed an agent really bad, because we are on timelines for everything.
Yeah.
So the first thing I remind them to do, on our side, there's a lot to do. We got to make sure the lender's getting that stuff. They're needing to make sure all the signed documents, once it's under contract, the lender needs it right away so they can start doing all that. We need to get it to the title company. But first and foremost, for the buyer, they need to make sure that escrow money and deposit is in within those 5 to 10 days. So that needs to be sent, whatever the contract says, immediately, because that's showing, hey, I'm good for this. I'm serious.
Right. So now that we have a closing date on that contract, we have to make sure that the lender has everything ASAP, because it could delay closing if they don't have what they need right away. So your first call after you hear from Hannah saying you got the house, call your lender. What do you guys need? Get it to them as quickly as you can.
Which is a 3-day window as well, and a lot of people don't know that in the first time.
Right. In the state of Tennessee, we got a 3-day window in our contract. Your state may be different, but that's how we do it here. Okay. So you mentioned earnest money and escrow money. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is that? What is that? Or in trust, in some states, it's trust money, but it's basically your deposit, not down payment on your mortgage, a deposit that you're putting on the house and the contract to confirm that you're moving forward.
Yes. And sellers are really looking for that, especially in this day and age where there's so much out of state buying. They want to see that this person is serious about this home. So this is your chance to basically, in good faith, show it has to be done and it needs to be done correctly. And your agent needs to be on it to make sure. Because if it's not done correctly, you're out of contract. So this is where it needs to be sent right away, and it's showing that deposit saying, and it'll go towards your closing costs. But this is showing, hey, I'm here for this house and I have the money and I'm ready.
Right. So your agent will most likely reach out to you and say, I need a check for X dollars, or a wire. You can do it that way too. If it's electronic, if you have an electronic option, we always recommend it. It's easier, it's smoother. You know, not a lot of people write checks in this day and age, but if you do, that's okay too. Make sure you get it to your brokerage as quickly as possible, or get it to your agent. And you're right, under that timeline, because if we don't, it leaves the opportunity for what?
It leaves the opportunity for you to fall out of contract. Yeah. And this is where it comes back to constantly making sure that the team that you're working with has got it. Because when you have that resource and you know that people are looking out for it, you need to be reminded that needs to get in. You need to make sure that they're in contact with that lender and with the listing agent to say, hey, we got it.
Yeah.
That is super important. So this is where you're going to start to see as the buyer, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing this alone.
Right. And so, again, hugely important to make sure that gets in on time. Okay, so now we're moving on. So there's some other things that we need to make sure of once we're under contract. Mm-hmm. Your closing attorney or your title company, also hugely important. We need to reach out to them and let them know, hey, we've got this under contract. We're planning to close on this date. We're going to go ahead and reserve a time with you to get that closed so they can begin getting the title work prepared.
Correct.
Our team has a closing coordinator, Chris Ladd, on staff who helps us with that. I always recommend working with a team with an agent, with a closing coordinator who, if she's out
saves our life.
Yeah, right. So, and it's just another layer to make sure that we stay on the deadlines for you, because Hannah's busy. You know, she might be showing property.
Dial.
Yeah. So we have him on staff to make sure that happens too.
Yes.
Anyway, the point of what I'm trying to say to you is make sure that you have somebody that understands the deadlines and that is working with you like Hannah. Okay, so now that we've got all that taken care of, we've got our closing agency confirmed. They know we're closing on a certain date. We're moving forward with a home inspection.
Yes.
Right? Another really important part of this, especially as a new home buyer, not necessarily a lot of experience or any experience buying a home, the home inspection is a really important component of this process. So let's talk about what a home inspection is and talk about how it works.
I know we talked back in episode 1 about negotiations too and dealing with that. This is where the home inspection is probably the biggest part of the negotiation after being under contract for something that is really important, that you know what you're looking at, that you are making sure you have someone guide you through that. An inspection, you're looking to make sure that this is something sound, that you've made one of the biggest purchases of your life. It's a good purchase. It's going to last you. And how to make it so that the seller and the buyer come to some sort of agreement on what this looks like. So you're gonna have an inspection period, and it's very important to order those inspections on time, because once you're out of that period, you don't have it and you're accepting it as is.
Right, you lose that leverage.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a time that you really need to make sure that your agent is on the ball about making sure that that inspection's done.
Right. And hiring a reputable home inspector with experience is
Correct.
important. Can sit down with you honestly and be like, here are the findings that I've found. And also tell you like what's really a big deal and what's not.
Yeah,
What's
like ideally not
cosmetic-
Cousin Eddie. You
Yes.
know, you need to make sure this is someone who knows what they're looking at. You're making the biggest purchase of your life. You don't just go buy a random car and go, okay, I hope it works.
Right. And to have
Yeah.
somebody to sit down with you and tell you, all right, these are some things we should probably ask for.
Right.
And again, the negotiation part and working with somebody with some experience is important to make sure that we're moving forward and you're comfortable buying the house, given the condition that it's in. But you wouldn't know any of this without that home inspection.
Correct.
Right. You're just going by faith at that point. And that does happen from time to time, but in most markets, you have that opportunity. We always recommend having the home inspection just to find that out. So, okay. So assuming that we've gotten through all of the home inspection, both sides are in agreement on if there's any repairs or not repairs, or basically everybody's good to go moving forward. What's the next thing the buyer should be thinking about? You know, at that point, we should be focusing on this house, and I think we should be powering down that home search, right? At that point,
I power down the home search you power down that home search when you're under contract and you take it seriously what you're doing, because constantly looking in any situation. If we need to look again, a good agent will let you know when.
Right.
So you power down that home search and you make sure that you are all in here, because if you're not, then you need to decide those things. So that's when we start to power down and say, hey, we're good. We're good to go.
And the reason for that is you're focused in on this house. You're under contract now. Continuing to look at homes is only going to confuse you more.
Right. It's always hey, should I have done that? And I get calls all the time from my clients and I say, hey, let's power down. Focus on what we're doing. You can't, multitasking in a situation that's the biggest decision of your life for a purchase.
Right.
That's not a multitask situation. It's a focus.
Right. Right. So we want to make sure that at that point you're moving forward. Now, if for whatever reason the contract falls through, or you decide not to buy it based on the home inspection, then
we save those churches. We know.
Of course, we'll jump right back in. But what we don't want to do is get you overwhelmed with everything that's going on.
We won't block you from home search.
And to that end, what I think we also need to make sure that we tell people is this is probably one of the bigger things that messes up a deal is making large purchases during your contract period. Okay, furniture, cars. You're moving. We get it. You're starting to plan out your new home. You've got an idea of what you want it to look like, and you want to start either furnishing that, or there's other things that come up in your life that you want to take care of. The problem with that is, on your mortgage, you're approved back when you did your pre-approval. Based on a certain debt to income criteria, or based on a certain criteria of how much money you had in the bank. Your financial situation was at a certain point. If you go in and make a large purchase and change that, or you add debt, or you buy a bunch of things and you change that financial situation, it could impact your loan.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
If it impacts your loan, you might not have your financing available anymore, and you might not be able to move forward with the purchase.
That new couch will be outside.
Yes. Right. Exactly. You'll have all this stuff, but nowhere to put it now. Right. And especially if you're buying specifically for a certain home.
Correct.
So it's important to hold off on any big purchases until after closing.
Yes.
I know it's not as convenient, especially when you're ready to move in, but it will save your mortgage and keep you from having any issues going forward getting to closing. So we always recommend those people we've had people that have actually purchased vehicles during the contract period, didn't really think about it, but the lender then came back and said, now that you have this additional debt, you don't qualify for this mortgage anymore.
Correct.
So we don't want that to happen for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Hannah, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your insight. Guys, in the last episode, we're going to talk about now we've gotten past the contract period. We're going to closing. What now? What are some of the details? There are some really important parts of that we need to make sure that those boxes are checked to make sure you have a successful closing.